Pavel can get Europe on the board again, or whether the deck building skills of OmegaZero will get him there.
My next opponent is OmegaZero. I know that he one of the best Chinese players and get a lot of top 5 finishes, really good performance, really insane.
就之前我看他卡组的话，我感觉我应该是有一点点优势的。
Tomorrow, I'm pretty sure I will be excited and a little bit nervous because it's always a little bit nervous before important match.
我一开始就说的，我就是打任何人，我感觉都差不多吧。
I'm glad that I represent Russia and also Team Millennium, and I hope that Russia and Team Millennium will proud of me.
我没有一直想着这是背负的那个国家了，就是我觉得这样想的话，可能会给自己压力，然后导致就发挥的不好，所以我就没有去想那么多，就用平常心对待，我觉得就挺好的，这样能让自己的状态保持在最好。
My greetings, OmegaZero.
我会赢你的。
Thanks everyone for support. I'm really appreciate that.
Hello everyone and welcome back. We have the final series of opening week right now. It's going to be Pavel versus OmegaZero, and no, this is not subtle. This is Firebat. I've traded him for a younger American version. How are you doing? You looking forward to the series, Firebat?
Yeah, looking forward to the series. It should be a pretty interesting matchup. OmegaZero series has always been pretty enjoyable to watch because he has such a unique lineup, and Pavel has just been a consistent performer throughout the year, so I can't wait to see who's going to fill up that last slot on the BlizzCon stage.
Yeah, this is it. We have 7, and one of these guys will be the 8th. Is Pavel going to be the 2nd European to get the spot, or is Tippy going to be all alone against a tide of other regions?
Well, one thing that's going against Pavel right now is that his lineup is sort of slated towards beating up on Control Warrior, and a lot of players have been playing Control Warrior in recent tournaments. No one has really been playing Dragon Warrior, but OmegaZero has brought the Dragon Warrior, so it kind of works against Pavel's strategy here.
Yeah, and you know, Dragon Warrior, as you mentioned, fallen off a little bit, but Chonsu, who's also qualified, also brought Dragon Warrior, so maybe not a bad shout at all, but let's not mess about anymore. We're going to get into game 1. It's going to be Pavel on the Mage versus OmegaZero's Zoo. How does this matchup go for you, Firebat?
Typically speaking, I would say that it's actually Tempo Mage favored, unless an Imp Gang boss is drawn for the Warlock side, and then it sort of swings in the Warlock's favor, as the Mage has a very difficult time defeating the Imp Gang boss. Usually requires multiple card combos such as Spell Power plus Arcane Blast, and then also a ping afterwards or an onboard trade. And unfortunately, Zoo draws Imp Gang boss more often than not when full mulliganing for it, so...
Yeah, and we might see that happen, because, you know, I completely agree. The 1/1 Imp as well can actually do a lot of work versus most of the Mage minions, because very similar to Zoo, a lot of the Mage minions are actually low health anyway, so it's not as if, you know, Control Warrior, you deal with the Imp Gang boss and there's a 1/1, you're like, I gain 4 armor every turn, I don't really care about a 1/1, but in this matchup specifically, it can make a big difference. There is no Imp Gang boss, but a plethora of 1-drops for OmegaZero here.
Yeah,
which 2 do you choose, Firebat?
Well, if you choose 2 at all, being able to coin Argus is also extremely powerful to be able to do at some point in the game. So you may think about only leading off with a single 1-drop. Typically speaking, you go with the Flame Imp first, just so you can contest a lot of the development options from your opponent. It has, you know, 3 attacks, so it can trade with 3 2s. It can beat a 1/3, and that's kind of like the stat line that you expect to be coming out of a Mage hand.
Yeah, and with no Abusive Sergeant available from OmegaZero at the moment, it's not as if you can play the Possessed Villager and then just trade up into one of those minions, so I wouldn't mind the Flame Imp at all. So it's going to be the choice. OmegaZero is going for the double 1s. He's spreading the ball a little bit wide here, going for the Possessed Villager as well, and relying on the fact that he'll have enough juice to get him to that Argus turn regardless.
Sure, yeah. He definitely has a play for the following turn with the next 2 1-drops. Gets a little bit fuzzy going towards turn 3, but by that time you're expecting to have top decked something to kind of fill out your curve, and that is a huge draw for him right there, able to get that Direwolf Alpha. We said he was lacking some buff cards, but that makes up for it.
Yeah, this is such a clean kill, and still leaves a minion on the board after the possessed villager dies. So now a lot of power presented. Is Babbling Buck going to do some work? Polymorph Boar. Pavel is going to use Polymorph Boar against OmegaZero.
Yeah, one of the tech cards
justice.
that OmegaZero has brought to this tournament is Polymorph Boar in his Tempo Mage, but that would be interesting to see if Pavel gets huge value out of it. Not typically the best card in this matchup, a little bit better in some of the slower control matchups, but Pavel doesn't really have a lot of the cards that are good at cleaning up this aggro start, so the Zoo minions are really running rampant on the board, and he needs to try and pick up some missiles or an Arcane Blast or even Frost Bolts just to have removal. Otherwise, just trying to develop and trade evenly with Zoo never works out well.
Yeah, you know, he's extremely minion heavy hand, only got the ball from the book. So, you know, everything was minions early on for Pavel here, and just not really what you need versus the Zoo, especially when OmegaZero isn't looking like he's going to, you know, turn off the heat anytime soon. The threats are just going to keep coming. The board's going to get even wider, and there is a Flame Strike in Pavel's deck, but that is a long, long way away yet.
That was huge right there. Just being able to get the discard of the Young Priestess off to maintain having the Defender of Argus for the following turn. OmegaZero took a pretty big gamble there to say, you know what, if I lose this gamble, it's okay. I have a kind of a weak turn next turn, but maybe I can top deck and fill it out anyway. But if I win this gamble, I'm going to have such a huge power swing on the following turn. It's going to be incredible, and we're about to see that now.
Yep, does have the Argus this turn if he wants to use it. I feel like it feels like you curve so well, you have the minions. It's probably not worth playing the Councilman before the Argus here. You just want to continue with this threat, and look at this smoke damage straight to face. And suddenly, Pavel has found himself on 9 health at most, depending on where the trade goes here with the Voidwalker on turn, or going into his turn 5. This, frankly, is horrendous opening for Pavel here.
Yeah, just, I wonder what he's thinking about. How is the removal playing into his head? He knows there's a book card in Pavel's hand, which could be, you know, any mage spell. So there's potentially any mage spell. He's so far ahead. I really like him just taking the time, trying to figure out, how do I possibly lose from this position? What punishes me for leaving the book up? And I couldn't think of anything. Omega couldn't think of anything. And that Voidwalker goes right to the face.
Yeah, could use Polymorph Boar, though, to transform the buck into a pig and then trade.
Even then, though, the overwhelming pressure on the board just kills you.
Not
so
going to be enough.
Needs to dig for answers, and there's no answers in the deck. It's so early. It's turn 5 for Pavel. Flame Strike is just miles away.
That's going to be it. Absolutely explosive opening from OmegaZero. Pavel could not even get close to keeping up there, even with the Frostbolt and the trade with the War Elemental. Still wouldn't have been enough.
And I think really the important thing to note about this match is just the tech choices from either deck. You know, OmegaZero's Zoo deck is a little bit faster than, you know, old traditional Zoo. It has the extra 1-drop in the form of Young Priestess. And at the same time, Pavel's Mage deck a little bit slowed down because he is targeting Control Warrior. He's got the Water Elemental in there, the Faceless Summoners, which could have been extra removal cards, and he's a little bit punished for these tech decisions before the match had even started.
Yeah, and we'll see how this series continues. It is 1-0 to OmegaZero. We'll be back right after this.
The Hearthstone World Champion.
So you have the most Hearthstone points out of any of the other players from China. Are you nervous now that you've seen the stage and that you've met some of the other players? Now that you're here, are you a little bit nervous?
没有，感觉还蛮轻松的，没有任何紧张。
Do you think that gives you an advantage going into the World Championship?
这些经验给我就是让我心态保得很好吧。我不知道其他那个选手会不会因为比赛紧张什么，反正我自己是觉得我自己心态挺好的，基本上不会出现什么紧张这种情况，基本上就是抱着认真的态度，还有轻松的心情，就这样。
How do you think your life would change if you won the World Championship?
这个我暂时没有考虑过。
So you haven't thought about what you would do with the money?
没有，暂时没有想。但是我觉得没有必要去想那些也不知道会不会发生了。你这么想，
那个有时间去想这些那个赢之后怎么花，还不如把这些时间用在就是想怎么赢嘛。我觉得我如果赢得这比赛之后，我后面还有那个很多时间可以让我去想这些钱怎么花什么之类的。
All of OmegaZero's focus is on this moment. He's not thinking ahead, not even thinking about if he wins who he might face next week. It's just, I am going to win this match, then focus on the next. So, really nice to see the player, completely zoned in and not feeling too nervous apparently either.
Yeah, and it's working out for him quite well. Able to get off to that quick 1-0 lead, get the Zoo Warlock out of the way. It's often kind of pictured as one of the weaker decks in the current meta, so it has to feel good, that being one of your like 4th or 5th decks, oftentimes in the Conquest lineup, escaping, getting its win, and shaping up to a good series for him.
Yeah, getting off to a win so convincing as well. I mean, he didn't really have to do anything too crazy in that series except to point his minions at face there, and it did get the job done. But let's see if Pavel has the ability to, just return a point onto the board for himself versus OmegaZero here. It's going to be Warrior versus the Mage from Pavel.
Yeah, once again, Pavel's Tempo Mage, outfitted to destroy Warrior, but not quite this type of Warrior. Outfitted to destroy some of the slower decks, has a lot of high-value cards in it, 2 Faceless Summoners, 2 Firelands Portals, Ragnaros, Water Elemental, so really heavy deck list, and might get taken for a run for its money.
Yeah, but the thing is here, OmegaZero's opening hand is extremely heavy in itself.
Sure.
He was probably, very fortunate that he got live tap as an option there from Finley as he needs to draw into something else to do. He does get the Fairy Dragon, so he can at least start to contest, or more than likely slam off the Sorcerer's Apprentice. That minion alone is too much of a threat with those spell reductions.
And at the same time, Fairy Dragon's your only dragon, so maintaining onto that for a little while, just until you get some more information about your hand. He wants to ensure that Corruptor is active on 5.
Yeah, a bit of a whiff turn from Pavel. He does not want to just play the Flame Wake onto the board with the chance of firing War Axe, execute, for example, and oof, indeed, Firebat. That Twilight Guardian straight off the top there to combine with the Fairy Dragon, as you mentioned, to be able to come down to 3/6 taunt.
I can only imagine in the back room, Brian Kibler is smiling.
Brian Kibler's always smiling.
Extra big now.
The extra large Kibler smile. Unfortunately, you guys don't get to see it. You are stuck with me in Firebat for this one. As Pavel starts his journey towards clearing up this Twilight Guardian over the course of a couple of turns. He doesn't really have many options, and OmegaZero is just playing off the top of his deck here, going straight into the Frothing Berserker and presenting a huge selection of threats for Pavel to try and deal with, and Pavel, yet again, did not get off to a quick start with his Mage.
No, he's trying to set up and sort of just shape out this clear for future turns, trying to figure out how is he going to get the Flame Waker clear to really happen. And it's really awkward to try and get the job done. And now he has to weigh, can he wait until Flame Strike? Because he can coin Flame Strike next turn. But that's a lot of pressure to leave up on the board this turn.
One unstable ghoul on this board is very, very scary with that Frothing Berserker. I think Pavel is playing around with the idea of Arcane Explosion, Arcane Blast ping onto the Frothing Berserker just to get that threat off the board. Looks like he's going for something else. Yeah. Anything else feels risky to me.
I mean, he's just going for the same sort of thing, but instead of...
Oh, he's got the coin as well, to be fair. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, otherwise, if he does it the other way and tries to just wait for the Flame Strike and save the coin for the Flame Strike, then that means he will be using all of his cheap spells without the Flame Waker, and it may just get stranded in his hand. So I like this a little bit better, and it doesn't pigeonhole you into having the Flame Strike the following turn. Because if he just plays super passive and holds onto the coin, OmegaZero is going to know he's setting up Flame Strike and be able to execute a plan to play around it, potentially.
OmegaZero never has to ask the question of where are my dragons. They are on demand as and when he needs them, because otherwise that was going to be a little bit awkward to kill that Flame Waker. And now, very clean kill there. Managed to trade into the Fairy Dragon. That's done enough work by itself. Pavel answering with an Azure Drake to at least challenge the Blackwing Corruptor and try and even out this board to an extent where Flame Strike could be the blowout turn in the future.
And OmegaZero, kind of afraid of spell power, takes the trade here. Tries to play around things like second Arcane Blast, second Frostbolt. All sorts of nasty stuff, and even Firelance Portal on that board would have been terrifying.
Ooh, 2-2 on the Faceless Summoner. What's the average minion out of that fiber? I feel like this is something you'd know.
The average minion out of the Summoner, I believe it's actually pretty close to 3-3.
Okay.
It's not exactly 3-3, but, you know, 3 point something.
Points.
Yeah, exactly.
Hearthstone would become a way too complicated game with those decimal places included. Ragnarok's coming down from OmegaZero, really piling on the pressure, and also we see the power of the Curator, one of the recent additions with the release of Karazhan into the Dragon Warrior deck. Just being able to almost refill your hand. Started playing the Fierce Monkey, as you can see, was drawn out, drawing a dragon as well, and drawing Finley if you haven't drawn it up until this point anyway, so really nice refill there. Ragnaros is going to take the damage from the portal though. It's a 4-4, not too shabby.
Pavel just trying to set up for that Flame Strike for the following turn. OmegaZero clearly has a read on the potential of Flame Strike. Now he just needs to discern, is it a bluff or is it really a Flame Strike that's coming out? He did see the hesitation before the turn where Pavel used the coin, which can also further indicate Flame Strike. So I think at this point, he's very convinced that there is potentially a Flame Strike there, and he is going to, you know, play around it as much as he possibly can this turn with the development and the trade in the way that he has done.
Yeah, it looks like playing the Monkey there was playing into Flame Strike to a certain extent, but also you need to bear in mind the second the Flame Strike isn't there, well, the Monkey's actually great. You know, like, it actually does a lot of work.
And if you just float 3 mana and don't develop into Flame Strike, then your opponent doesn't have to Flame Strike. Then all of a sudden, Pavel could use spot removal on the Ragnaros and spot removal on the Draconoid Crusher, and you're behind. So I really like committing the 1 extra card. You have such a card lead as OmegaZero in this position that I feel like it's very easy and affordable to make that exchange.
Draconoid Crusher face puts Pavel to 13, and Pavel's got a bit of cycle left in himself, but he feels like his trust is in the Babbling Book to try and do something to get him out of this mess.
Yeah, and Babbling Book just fits in the curve in what he wants to be doing with the Firelance Portal ping this turn anyway. So take the risk with the book first, see if you maybe get something better. If not, just try and clean up the board as much as possible and try and stay alive.
Yeah, the little dwarf there actually challenges the Azure Drake, so not too bad in terms of attack. Oh, that Kor'kron Elite as well is just a hell of a lot of power from hand to be able to finish up this game. Alex Straz's champion is going to come down, clear up the 4-2, and really protect the Azure Drake here. Oh, I told a lie. Blood to Wick is clearing the 4-2. The Alex Straz champion, of course, is going to face. And with Kor'kron Elite in hand, this is looking very, very difficult for Pavel to be able to defend against this. Yet another extremely fast onslaught from OmegaZero.
And really the story is here, Pavel aimed his decks towards control decks, and he is not facing control decks in this series.
Definitely not.
He's trying to target out Control Warrior, and OmegaZero is bringing on the Dragon Warrior.
Yeah, an extremely fast game. Only going to be another 10 minutes at this rate, Fiber. No, OmegaZero there with a great performance so far, going up 2-0 versus Pavel. They're battling for the spot in BlizzCon, and we'll see if they're going to be able to take it straight after this.
Do you think you have a playstyle?
In Hearthstone, it's not about playstyle, it's about which play have better chances to give you a win.
What about if you don't know which play is better?
I will choose play which I feel give me more chance to win.
How did you prepare for the World Championship?
Just thinking about which decks is the best, test it on ladder and with my practice partners.
Like, who were your main practice partners?
I don't have main practice partners, but I was practice with Yok, Maverick, it's French players. Also with Naiman and Hippie we had Skype call.
What's the Russian Hearthstone scene like?
Yeah, Russian community have a lot of strong players, for example, Shtanodachi, Unvi, Kalenta, Naiman.
Who would you want to beat the most?
Doesn't matter too much.
Not Dr. Hippie?
Yeah, it will be nice to beat Dr. Hippie. This little troll.
like Pavel has a mountain to climb if he wants to book his spot at BlizzCon next week in the top 8. What does he need to do to deal with Omega Hero? Omega Hero? He might be an Omega Hero.
He might
Why
be.
not?
It's looking like it.
Yeah. What does he need to do to deal with OmegaZero at this point, Fiber?
I think one of the things that Pavel really needs to do if he wants to sort of get back on his feet in this series, being at such a big lineup disadvantage with a contrast in styles here, is a little bit more aggressive on the mulligans. You can't treat it like a standard game on ladder. You can't treat it like you're just playing against a regular ladder deck, because OmegaZero's decks are different. They're extra hyper aggressive, and the mediocre or okay opening hand isn't going to be good enough against this aggression with your greedy deck lists. You need to, you know, mulligan for extra aggressively for more or less the perfect hand when you're at a disadvantage. That's when you got to take the risks.
Let's see what Pavel got in his opening hand. Pretty good start. You must have sent him your energy.
That's a
Mana
good one.
Worm into Apprentice with Frostbolt as like the flex pick, or flex choice, should I say, going into the next couple of turns. But OmegaZero is not exactly slouched on his opening hand either. He answers with a Mana Worm and he still has the coin, has the Flame Waker, Loot Hoarder, Book, Thanos. I feel like OmegaZero's got everything he needs. Maybe even like one spell removal is all he's missing to make this really good.
One thing that's a key thing to note between the two deck lists is no Cult Sorcerers in OmegaZero's deck, so his Arcane Blasts aren't going to be as easy to power up to kill something like the Azure Drakes, which can oftentimes be a really big tempo swing in the matchup. So that could end up costing him a little bit, but the extra draw in OmegaZero's deck is going to allow him to find a lot more burn a lot faster.
Yep, no Cult Sorcerer, but does have Polymorph Boar, which then reduces his health down to 2, so you don't need the spell power. It's all starting to make sense. But Flame Waker coming down now and should be able to clear up this Mana Worm, unless OmegaZero was a little bit unlucky on the Flame Waker. Did clear it up. The speediest turn of Hearthstone I've ever seen. The card was not even in hand before he threw it out on OmegaZero's Flame Waker. The Frostbolt and Ping clearing that up as well. So these players are not messing about now.
I'd honestly like to see OmegaZero put out another. Well, the mirror entity might change that.
Yeah.
now you got to sit back and reanalyze.
What were you saying, Firebat?
I mean, Flame Waker does seem rather appealing. You saw it was answered by a top deck, and the top deck was, you know, played extremely quickly, which oftentimes means they didn't have an answer and got super excited that they finally got an answer off the draw. So you can kind of read into that and assume that they don't have other answers in their hand. So that's what makes the Flame Waker so tempting, but at the same time, turn 5 is a very heavy play for Tempo Mage. Oftentimes they want to be playing Azure Drake. It's super impactful to their game plan. So Mirror Entity can also be good in that situation. But OmegaZero goes with the Flame Waker, and you got to imagine he's playing into that whole thing where Pavel maybe doesn't have an answer.
Yeah, and it looks like it's working out for him now. OmegaZero has a few more options available to him. Can just Mirror Entity and go into Blood Mage, I feel. Just a pretty okay turn, get the 2 damage from the spell, and also know you're kind of going to be that one step ahead of your opponent now with the Mirror Entity causing some issues. And now Pavel has the tough choice of saying, well, this could be any mage secret in the game at the moment, or in standard at least, should I say. And he really has to think about it. He does have the Babbling Book, which is great to just drop. It's just a 1-1. He's very quickly going to find out what it is, and he can respond with a Mirror Entity of his own.
Yes, he can. Still no great answers to this Flame Waker, and that's going to accumulate a lot of chip damage over the course of the game. And if we break down OmegaZero's deck and just kind of look at the amount of raw damage that this deck list kind of has, you know, you look at 2 Fireballs, that's 12 damage right there. You look at 2 Frostbolts, that's another 6, adding up to 18. You look at Polymorph Boar is an additional 4 damage, so that adds up to 22. And then the Torch on top of that gets upwards to 25. And then if you get the other side of it, it's 31 potential points of burn if he's continually able to draw his deck. So it doesn't take much chip damage to get close out this game.
Well, that was, that was the close of your episode of Maths with Firebat. We'll be continuing on with the game of Hearthstone. Good job. Yeah, I do completely agree, though. All joking aside, I did wonder going back there. Do you think OmegaZero was a bit too quick to play the Azure Drake when he had the Sorcerer's Apprentice available to drop instead? The secret was live, and it ended up being the Azure Drake to go over to Pavel.
Well, if you just count the amount of mage secrets, what are the odds it's Mirror Entity, and how badly do you get punished if it is, versus how much do you get rewarded. If it isn't Mirror Entity, I believe OmegaZero just kind of wins from that position. So I think the risk is in your favor, and the risk-reward balances out to be a favorable outcome for you.
Now that the Flame Waker's gone for OmegaZero, Pavel is going to start engaging the one of his own. Combined with the Sorcerer Apprentice, can get a lot of work done. He's going to use the Arcane Missiles as well. Why not at this point? You really want as much value as possible from this Flame Waker. And he does clear off the minions as well, so Pavel starting to mount a bit of a comeback in this game.
Yeah, gotta be happy about that. Barnes coming up for OmegaZero. A little surprised he didn't just drop the Ragnaros out there, but he must really want to be able to clear this Flame Waker, as it's such a huge threat and can wreak so much havoc. Yeah,
the Azure Drake off the Barnes as well means that he can actually just play the Mana Worm, which is huge, getting one extra minion and, to be honest, an extra threat on the board. It's actually gigantic at this point. Violence Fall. Nothing too flashy, only a 4/4. It's enough to continue threatening the board here. OmegaZero. Oh, okay. Rag Arcane Missiles, Fiber?
I like it. I don't think Arcane Missiles is really gaining too much value in your hand, and it has the ability to maybe clean up one of these Sorcerer's Apprentices.
And it charges up Yogg as well. Sure. Like, why not? You know, it's very quickly looking like OmegaZero out of juice a little bit, considering he has so much card draw in his version of Tempo Mage. He might just hit the point he has to play Yogg and then hope Yogg can get enough work done, whether it be clear the opponent's board, draw some cards, maybe a bit of both. And see how it turns out.
Favoring removing the spell reduction over removing the minion with a little bit more durability and attack power. I like that decision by OmegaZero. There's a lot of crazy stuff Tempo Mage can do with 2 Sorcerers.
It'll probably add up to more damage than the extra 1 damage you've saved by killing the Apothecary. And this is looking a little bit rough for OmegaZero, but when times get rough, sometimes you just have to praise Yogg and let him do his work. Forbidden Torch not going to change OmegaZero's plan. Yogg is hitting the board right now.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Who's wearing a hat? Ah, I wanted Huffer to wear a hat. So good.
That adds a Fireball to his deck, so even more damage inside the deck list of OmegaZero. Oh, that just changes your hero power in this cast as well. So he is now a druid.
Jaina has become a druid. Release the hounds.
It's 1 damage off lethal. Immediately 1 hound went to face. I think OmegaZero might have thought he had lethal there for a second.
Yeah, hence the very quick attack.
Now he's sitting back realizing.
I mean, tough one. The problem here is the Misha being on 1 health means pingable.
And all of this damage can come through. That means 8 damage can come through. If Pavel expends 2 mana to do so.
I think the Huffer has to go to face, though.
You may just win out on board control if Pavel doesn't have the Flame Strike, but
what if he does?
If he does, then this Huffer does need to go to face.
No spells for Pavel unless he can play the Azure Drake into something impactful here. It's like the plan. Mana Worm, no spells again. Pavel's deck is a minion-heavy deck overall, and it's not going to be enough. OmegaZero 3-0 off the back of that Yogg doing just enough with the Call of the Wild and the Unleash. This guy's doing it.
He's doing it. The aggression, it's working out for him. The way that he's designed his decks is punish his deck designs that are a little bit slower, and we can see that happening. Had to rely on the Yogg a little bit there, but it was a fairly mediocre Yogg, all things considered, and was still able to get the job done, so seems good to me.
Yep, OmegaZero is potentially 1 game off qualifying for the round of 8 for BlizzCon, so we'll be getting ready for the next match. Don't go anywhere.
The Hearthstone World Championship is sponsored in...
How did you prepare for the World Championship? What's your secret?
我就是做准备蛮多，虽然就是时间有点长，但是我觉得现在我的卡组加上我的那个实力，我足够那个进8强了。
Since you do have those high legend finishes, a lot of times people will take your decks and use them What do you think of that?
哦，有啊，挺多的啊，特别就是天机遇见上就是自己的套牌的对手，都会出现这种情况下。
It's kind of funny because there's probably a lot of players in Americas specifically that don't know who you are, but have used your decks.
国内的话，我就是发帖子的话，一般会很多人用我这样牌图，但是国外的话，我了解不多，我也不清楚有没有这种情况。
Do you think Chinese players are a little bit better? Or do you think they still have some work to do to catch up to some of the other regions?
我觉得中国不会比其他区的弱，但是强不强的话，就看打得怎样吧。
OmegaZero, wow, look at that focus. Fully preparing himself. One game away from top 8 at BlizzCon. This is everything. These players have worked all year, been so consistent in their performance that this is the spot they're at now. Pavel down 3-0, a huge difference from his 4-0 victory yesterday.
Yeah, he has to be feeling the pressure now. Everything on the line could all be decided this next game.
Stay hydrated, Pavel. That is correct.
That
Get
is
some
correct.
water in you and focus. But OmegaZero, an extremely impressive performance so far. His decks, just at first glance, very unorthodox. And they're getting the work done. You cannot argue with how dominant he's been in this series so far. And here we go, potentially the final game of opening week. OmegaZero on his Druid and Pavel on his Warrior.
Yeah, and this is the token Druid. It doesn't have the Malagos burst combo in it. There are no Moonfires, and instead there are Power the Wilds. No Malagos, instead he has those Violet Teachers slotted in, so a lot more flexibility to go wide, but a lot less finishing potential, and can oftentimes lead to a tougher matchup against Control Warrior.
Yeah, how do you think this deck overall is better versus Control Warrior than the Malagos focused one, or worse? 'Cause a lot of players I think it's a lot better because you can apply more pressure overall.
Sure, you can apply more pressure, but it really depends on how you've teched your finishing win condition. And if you have in there Soul of the Forest, for example, which was a popular tech back before people started playing the Malagos Druid, that card can single-handedly allow you to win against Control Warrior because your board no longer gets swept out by a Brawl, or even just Savage Roar for some finishing potential. But the way that this token Druid is kind of built, it's not very greedy. It doesn't have a lot of those finishing cards. There's no Savage Roar. There's no Soul of the Forest. It's just kind of playing things and fighting honestly for the board, which Warrior can take advantage of.
Yeah, and as well, just to remind everyone, this is actually Cthulhu Warrior. As you can see, the cultist there starting to hit the board, Beckoner of Evil on this turn. And we saw from Cydonia earlier today, sometimes Cthulhu Warrior can just beat you up and end the game relatively quickly, surprisingly so for more of the standard Control Warrior variants. And OmegaZero only just drawing into a Wild Growth a little bit too late. Even a turn ago would have been fantastic for him, as he did end up hero powering twice, not getting too much done.
Yeah, a lot of times in this matchup you want to wait on Wild Growth. So at this point, I think Wild Growth is kind of, that ship has sailed, and he wants to try and turn it into the excess mana and then play the excess mana and draw a card with a Violet Teacher on board, creating 2 1/1s, drawing a card and playing 2 spells to help discount your Arcane Giants. But that's a long journey away, but wow, he is actually just going to go for it right now, play pretty aggressively onto the board instead of taking the passive route. And I think that has a lot to do with, not having those Savage Roars and not having Soul of the Forest in the build. Just wants to play towards, maybe he can get an early game board lead and snowball that into a win, not having to worry about having to deal with the gain 10 armors in the form of the Ancient Shield Bearers from Pavel.
Yeah, I do understand it overall, because if you fall behind on the board versus Cthulhu Warrior, how does this Druid even get back?
You gotta mulch. One mulch for something.
Sorry, I take it all back. You can just mulch the board away. But yeah, you do have the mulch to work with. But even again, 2 Cthulhu Chosens available, and they are just not easy minions for the Druid to deal with one after the other. Pavel going to go straight for the Justicar this turn, really start tanking up, being able to leverage that even more powerful hero power.
Pay attention,
This might
class.
be just the all-in with the Violet Teacher. It's going to be curious to see how much he goes in.
Pretty much needs to be a Wrath. Does he ever naturalize this?
No, no way. You might take Naturalize, but I
Why
don't
is
think
Violet Teacher's just going to die
yeah,
to the Justica?
it's the price you gotta pay sometimes. You don't want to give your opponent 2 cards this early, but at later stages of the game, Naturalizing Cthulhu could be super huge, so taking Naturalize for that prospect, I really like, but I can't imagine the tempo Naturalize here, unless you want to tempo Naturalize, Innervate, Power the Wild, and just go all in.
I am ready to learn.
The Power of the Wild. He's just going to go for hero power here. A bit of a halfway house. Yep, he's going to save the Naturalize for a much bigger target later on. The Violet Teacher will just be dead to Justicar, but OmegaZero relying on these 2/2s to get the job done for now.
Yeah, they'll pose a little bit of chip damage, but honestly, against the tank up, now that one's been removed, they're not actually pushing any damage. They're just maintaining Pavel at 23.
Yeah, and they, you know, if OmegaZero wants to trade into these, he has to use both minions or a hero power, which is just going to be yet more damage to start stacking up onto OmegaZero himself. Second Violet Teacher available for him now. Only Naturalize to combo it with, so I'm not going to do too much yet. Pavel has already got an answer to at least one of the Arcane Giants we can see in OmegaZero's hand, or a straight up answer to them both with a potential brawl as well.
Yeah, just throwing it out there into the potential brawl, but feels like he has to be aggressive, continuing to do so. Pavel has a lot of ways to be able to punish this.
Which way do you like the most, Firebat? You can't wait till he does a play and answer.
I'm analyzing.
This is the sound of
The
Firebat.
awkward part of the brawl is if you do lose the brawl, then you're pretty toast. Taking that 8 additional damage is something you really do not want to do. So I like the safer play, which is kind of what Pavel is went with here, which is removing it with the execute. Gets the trade, so he gets the value out of the bubble, and you can wait for a bigger board to brawl when your opponent has to kind of go in for that last-ditch all-in push. That's when you can really capitalize on the brawl.
Is there any thought here behind Sylvanas this turn, or do you think it's just too risky to take the 8 for now? Because
There's the Raven Idol card, which gets really interesting, right? So if you take the 8 for now, you're potentially looking at that Raven Idol card maxing out at 6 additional damage. So it could be 16, 17 damage, and then, you know, a swipe on top of that. You're looking at like 21, so you would be safe. But
Well, just the potential of Sylvanas take a rough turn itself for a brawl if it continues to develop onto the board next turn and have that as your blowout turn.
I think it would be a reasonable line of play, yeah.
Well, he did go with the execute instead, playing it safe, and to be honest,
Sure. It's
don't blame him at this point.
He's in such a commanding position, he doesn't need to take huge risks, and Sylvanas is really great for this exact situation that we're about to see right here.
Really great anti-Ancient of War. A lot of the time, if the trade happens straight up, you gain a 5/5 taunt.
I have no time for games.
He's to continue tanking up as well, and has the Cthulhu in his hand ready to launch.
Big eye that has many other eyes. That's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's staring at me.
It is staring at Pavel as well. You can't play it next turn, but the turn after will be huge for him. For now, though, OmegaZero probably is to take a gamble here against the Sylvanas, and is also debating whether or not he wants to super overextend, just go all in on the board, because he could do that as well and just say, you know what, Brawl's not a card I beat, let's do it. And
yeah, one of the frustrations as well is for OmegaZero is there's not even been an opportunity for Pavel to really brawl. So it's not as if he can say, well, I had loads of minions and he didn't brawl, so he probably doesn't have it, because there's just never been that spot this game. So he knows that he's probably been holding on to a couple of cards throughout most of this game so far, and one of those could very likely be Brawl. And as you said, he probably just doesn't win versus Brawl at this point.
yeah, I actually think it's fine to all in against Brawl. I think if there is a Brawl, the current stages of the hands, it's very unlikely that you win.
Afraid. It's the 2-1. Does dodge the Ancient of War steal there from OmegaZero. Got to be feeling pretty good about that. Not going to go too heavy by the looks of things, though.
Yeah, definitely. Once he's won the 50-50, this looks awesome. The scary part is having to win the 50-50 to get to this position. But now that he's here, he seems like he could potentially be stabilizing as long as there isn't a big minion coming out like Ancient Shield Bearer, Twins, or the Cthulhu. And we can see already with Caster Vision that Pavel's got the Cthulhu loaded up for next turn. And although OmegaZero does have answers for it, it's still going to kind of wreak havoc on his board rather quickly.
Yep, I believe the Cthulhu is a 12-12, so getting plenty of damage done and just being a pest in itself. Was that the mulch used on the Acolyte? Okay.
Yeah, he's realizing one of the ways he wins this game, or probably the only way that he wins this game, since he has no value in his hand, he has to ensure that Pavel also has no value in his hand, so denying the ability for Pavel to get additional options and cards is one of the ways he hopes that Cthulhu Warrior just stalls out with weak Cthulhu minions.
But you know, it isn't a weak Cthulhu minion.
No, this
Twin Emperor Veclor is the perfect follow-up to this Naturalize. You say, well, you've used Mulch, you've used Naturalize, thanks for the 2 cards, now I have many options. There's, you know, another Emperor, Emperor Thorison, that gets drawn, so there's multiple options now for Pavel to follow up with, and OmegaZero sitting on the old Innovate Living Roots combo, which is a combo no one likes to sit on, is not looking too great. Pavel going with the Twins over the Thorison this turn, just to put more pressure on the board, really, and not do anything. You know, the difference between 5 and 6 health is pretty huge to remove, actually. You know, any sort of spell power swipe, for example, swinging the board in OmegaZero's favor was potentially possible there.
Yeah, OmegaZero has almost no hope in this game, but the one hope that he does have is there is a Yogg-Saron in his deck list, so just hoping that he can find that off the top and get a huge swing out of it.
Yeah, and OmegaZero did pretty well with Yogg last time he needed it, so he'll be wishing on it a second time. Ragnaros is a decent draw. Nourish, though.
Yeah, now the 2 choices are either draw for the Yogg-Saron or hope your opponent has no answer for Rag. But I'm in the camp here that Rag's not enough. Even if Rag comes down, hits the Emperor Thorison, and doesn't get removed, I don't think you will win the game. I think your opponent can trade both minions into the Rag, redevelop, and be fine.
Yeah, I think with the naturalized 2-card draw, it has put Pavel in a really strong position in terms of hand size. It's just the odds. There's only 1 Shield Slam, 1 Execute been used. The odds on there being an answer to Rag, even without the minions, is pretty high at this point.
And I mean, with the minions, there's a 100% answer to it.
Yeah.
So I think drawing for Yogg is slightly better, but I think both ways you lose about 99% of the time.
More 5-bet stats, I love it. Approximately all of the time.
Well, there's never all of the time in Hearthstone. It's always approximate, right? There's just always some crazy chain of events that you can try and assemble to navigate your way out, and that's what OmegaZero is trying to do.
Yeah, and the problem with this Nourish is even if he gets Yogg, he will not be able to cast it this turn, and he's simply going to be 1 turn too late. So your Drake into a dream.
Well, he's able to remove the 5/5 here. So he is alive. He's got another chance at the Yogg-Saron dream. And that could be it. In his no, Drew to the Claw.
The Disciples of Cthulhu. It's a very difficult name to say.
Sure.
Blizzard, can you please make your card names easy for me to pronounce? I'm going to be able to clear up the Azure Drake. If he really wants to, you're going to use it for card control.
Looking for the Gore Howl. Does he have a Gore Howl in the build? He does.
Ancient Shield Bearer. Yet another card that is going to push OmegaZero out of this game. Pavel on 27 armor. Quite happily gain another 10 next turn easily, or just kill his opponent one way or the other. Gonna have to find out. OmegaZero does manage to clear up the board. That one of, another one of. You know, this is a theme of OmegaZero's decks so far in this tournament. A lot of just single cards in the deck, and not many 2-ofs, or at least a large amount of 1-ofs in the deck, Druid of the Claw being one of them. Posing a bit of a frustration now for Pavel, as it's a tournament you can't really deal with very well.
This is going to need to be the craziest Yogg that anyone has ever seen in Hearthstone history for OmegaZero to come back in this game.
And that is a Wrath, not a Yogg.
You think it could turn into a Yogg?
It could. It could. Imagine the Yogg can see the side at this point.
Just digging for that Yogg-Saron. Where is it?
I keep digging for that Yogg.
The saddest part is it's going to be like his last card. He's going to draw all game to find Yogg-Saron. He's going to play it, and Yoggstron's just going to immediately sprint and kill him. There he is. There it is.
Okay.
His chance to come back in this game.
Yeah, and Pavel does not have a kill yet. He has not set up Leaf at this point. The Power of the Wild actually was really good there for Druid of the Claw being able to trade into the Shield Bearer and still survive. Provide a little bit of a speed bump for Pavel's Cobra, which means it's going to have to trade into the Azure Drake, use the Disciple to clear out the Druid. There is the Doomcaller for platoon number 2. Pavel really putting the pressure on OmegaZero, and OmegaZero not messing around, already hovering over Yogg. Let's see what it can do. Is it going to be enough? We're about to find out.
This needs to be a 63 damage Yogg.
Ult on Yogg. Nope, okay.
That would have been super anticlimactic.
Oh, second ult, 50-50. No, that is going to be it. And also with the extra damage on the Doomcaller, OmegaZero did him a well played before Yogg, and he meant it. One of them was going to win off the back of that Yogg, and it wasn't OmegaZero this time, as Pavel does put a point on the board and maybe starts his fight back against OmegaZero here.
Yeah, and I like how OmegaZero, you know, he took his 0.00001% chance to win the game, you know. Take every opportunity you can get. You got to remember, he's playing for a chance to play on the BlizzCon stage and an additional $25,000 right on this game. So, you know, 0.5%, a millionth of a percent, you take those extra advantages.
100% agree on that one, Firebat. But Pavel has started to mount his defense. Let's see if it's going to be enough right after this.
What was your strategy with your decks coming into the World Championship?
I just bring decks which is, in my opinion, the best. I mean, all my decks is good against Control Warrior, maybe except Druid, but Druid also have decent chance against it. And all my decks, in general, very strong.
So, how do you think you compare to the other players at the World Championship?
I don't think that anyone have better chance to win BlizzCon than me. Players have less chance than me, I think, and someone have equal chance.
Do you think winning BlizzCon will change your life?
Yeah, it will definitely change my life. I mean, I will get a lot of money, more popularity.
You were very close to qualifying for the World Championship last year.
Yep.
How did it feel this year after you won the last call and qualified?
Yeah, I'm super glad that I qualified for BlizzCon and that I'm here. Hopefully I will win BlizzCon.
Welcome back, everyone, to this intense series of OmegaZero versus Pavel. Omega currently 3-1 up, but Pavel did manage to get a point on the board in the last game. Do you think he's got what it takes to be able to go 3-0 now versus OmegaZero? Too many zeros.
Too many zeros. It's going to be tough. It really is. Oftentimes, it's very difficult to come back in a series of Hearthstone unless your lineup is specifically targeting the remaining deck from your opponent. And Pavel's lineup is in no way specifically targeting the Druid. He doesn't have bad matchups against the Druid, but he doesn't have particularly, you know, amazing, super favored matchups against the Druid. So it's going to be very tough for him. He's going to need to get a little bit of luck and play extremely well if he's going to be able to take this series back.
Yeah, and this series is for these players everything at this moment in time. It is going to be a spot to join the other 7 players who we have confirmed for next week at BlizzCon to play for the big trophy. What is it like playing on that stage, Viper?
What's it like playing on the BlizzCon stage?
The stage.
It's pretty intense. The experience is I haven't really experienced anything like it before or after since I've been there. The entire stage sort of shakes because there's so many people like cheering and whatnot.
Oh, okay, it's not like an earthquake test.
No, not like an earthquake.
Here's another
I mean,
level
it is
of play,
California, but like, you know, there's just so much excitement, so much energy that things kind of like sway a little bit, and you can actually feel the energy levels. And when something exciting happens, it moves more, and when it's kind of like mellow, it doesn't move as much. But It's pretty nerve-wracking, just kind of being there, being involved in all of that energy, and I would recommend it to all of these players to try their best to get there, because it really is an experience.
Yeah, they're definitely going to. There's no doubt about that. Truly a unique experience these players are fighting for, to play on the world stage. Nothing gets bigger than this. Pavel versus OmegaZero. OmegaZero currently ahead 3-1. Everything to work for Pavel here to be able to take this series out, whereas OmegaZero only needs one victory with his Druid to take the series. Both players banning Shaman as well. We've not really discussed the bans too much, as there's been a lot of action going on, but what do you make of these bans?
I really think the ban that that Pavel has made here of banning out OmegaZero's Shaman is very interesting. I think he may have actually benefited from the Shaman sticking around, since OmegaZero's Shaman is so kind of weird and wonky. It has no tunnel trugs in it, no real ability to go aggressive super quickly, and with Pavel having so many slow decks, such as the Malagos Rogue and his Greedy Tempo Mage, he may have been able to benefit from the Shaman, but obviously he knows the decks better than I do, and just wanted to get rid of that Shaman.
Yep, next game coming up is going to be a Druid Mirror, but I think these decks are a little bit different, not completely mirrored, as Pavel is playing the Malagos version with the Dark Arakoas in his list, which is something we saw out of him from last call as well. And OmegaZero, of course, what we've seen previously this series, is on the more token-focused Druid list.
Yeah, and a lot of times the token Druid can get off to a faster start, just having more options in the 4-drop slot. So, you know, both players start with Wild Growth on 2 typically, and then the token Druid's able to immediately initiate pressure with Violet Teacher or Fandral on 4, whereas the Malagos Druid kind of passes on 4 a lot of the time and takes their first action on 5. So that can be a huge factor, but this game, both players kind of missing their Wild Growth. Looks like it's going to be a slow one.
Yeah, both players just rocking the shapeshift. Soul of the Forest as an option for OmegaZero.
And Living Roots.
Yeah, we were talking about Soul of the Forest. You know, we've talked a lot about it this week overall. Could be a great card. If this was versus Warrior, I feel like
huge.
Soul of the Forest would be the snap pick. But Living Roots overall more flexible in general, especially versus Druid that kind of struggles to deal with a wide board as it is. Maybe you don't need Soul of the Forest too much in this specific game.
Sure. Pavel off to the ramping. He's got a lot of very large minions in his deck. He may even nourish for crystals just because of the mana cost in his hand, and being able to get Malagos out quickly on 9 is often extremely powerful. There is one mulch in OmegaZero's deck, but it's still a huge threat to get out. And this is a big decision point, committing to either the value game or the tempo game right now.
Yeah, I would love to see the draw for cards here. I always feel like in Druid mirrors, although they're not an exact mirror, that just having more stuff than your opponent normally works out a lot better as well, because you know the 2 minions he was ramping up to were Malagos and Yogg, both very specific styles where Yogg's a little bit of a loose cannon and Malagos needs those cheap spells to combine with it, and if it eats a mulch then you're definitely in trouble. So both players deciding that more cards equals a better game.
Yeah, both players going kind of value-oriented rather than tempo-oriented with their choose ones there. And oftentimes the value game is a lot stronger in the Druid hand. You kind of need a specific set of cards to go for the more aggressive tempo-oriented play there with the mana crystals. But as it progresses and as it turns more and more value-oriented, you have to kind of give the edge to Pavel, because he just simply has a lot more bigger minions in his deck with those Arakoas and with the Malagos combo being able to remove big threats.
Yeah, I think that's it. As the game continues, as these players draw through the decks, Pavel has the ability of just killing OmegaZero with a Malagos burst, whereas Omega doesn't really have that option, and it's much more obvious, you know, when he's getting ready to make a kill, because he'll make a big board half the time, and that takes a turn. There is no instant kill option for Omega, so Pavel does look like he's doing okay here. Get his Power of the Wild as well, so now he's saying, you know what, I can also be a token Druid.
Little tokens, for sure. Happy little trees.
My saplings are bigger than yours.
A little bit. Omega here now deciding how he wants to develop onto this board. Not really too many powerful plays going forwards. Has the ability to, you know, if he wants to be super aggressive for like Blood Mage Swipe, but likely not to be so aggressive on the board. Wants to try and save Power of the Wilds to go couple with Violet Teachers. The Innovate's pretty tempting, though. This swipe isn't the most powerful tool in the world against a non-token druid.
Yeah, I like it. Then it sort of demands Pavel, you know, asks him whether he's got a swipe or not. If he has, that reduces Pavel's next turn down quite significantly if he goes for the swipe himself, unless, you know, Innovates come out as well and really the start of the turn is just going to be the...
Okay, gonna make a big board here. Try and land the Power of the Wild. Bait out some AoE removal before he commits the second Power of the Wild with the Teacher with a super big board.
Just saying, well, you Power of the Wild, I can Power the Wild too. This is very back and forth. Innovate coming out for Pavel could be quite impactful when combined with those 2 Arcane Giants.
Yeah, 2 Arcane Giants, or even the Malagos Moonfire.
Oh, okay.
He's
Yeah,
saying
you can also do that.
If you do not have your 1 copy of Mulch, you lose the game. And OmegaZero has that 1 copy of Mulch, so we're going to keep playing. And this swings the initiative over to OmegaZero. He's actually able to get a bit of a tempo lead out of this, especially being able to couple it with the Violet Teacher. And he wants to try and get a spell off Raven Idol here. He wants to get Mulch. If he's able to get Mulch off the Raven Idol here, he can use the card he got off Raven Idol to remove the Malagos, and then Pavel will still think he does not have a Mulch in his hand, because that's the read Pavel is kind of making on OmegaZero when deploying the YOLO Malagos. So if OmegaZero can continue to conceal that Mulch, Pavel will not assume that he has Mulch in later turns.
Is that the technical term for that style of Malagos?
Yeah, that's
the YOLO Malagos.
That is the YOLO Malagos.
YOLOgos.
I mean, the YOLOgos, sure. You have, it's in your favor that there is not Mulch in the opponent's hand, so you have like 60-40 to win the match on the spot right there with the YOLOgos, but it is a big risk because when it does get punished, you could turn a favorable board state into an unfavorable board state.
Yeah, and he did, actually, Pavel did have the backup of just slamming 2 Arcane Giants onto the board as well. You know, even, we did see the Mulch come out, of course. Not going to be as likely now because OmegaZero drawing into the Violet Teacher was huge. Allowed him to clear up the Malagos and develop a board, so maybe we won't see both. Oh, Pavel completely disagrees. Fantastic.
He's seen 1 Power of the Wild already. He says, you don't got the 2nd Power of the Wild. I am going to put out this pressure with these Arcane Giants and race you down.
Yeah, he's actually just got a lot of damage available to him with Swipe, Double Foul, Rage as well. And
yeah.
I think Pavel has Azure Drakes left, right?
Sure.
So this Netherspite Historian.
It could get some value if the game continues.
Discover a 9-drop dragon.
Sometimes Malagos.
YOLOgos times 2.
He's got the YOLOgos and the Malagos and the Discoverlos. It's all over the place.
I'm gonna have to work on keeping track of these dragons. OmegaZero has plenty of options himself, and you know, this game is getting very, very intricate, and it's really off the back of both players nourishing for cards pretty much one after the other, which means they've had so many options available to him. OmegaZero saying, hey, I'm going to go very, very wide. This is my 2nd Power of the Wild. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to present so much damage that even those 2 Arcane Giants don't look like huge threats at the moment.
Yeah, I really like this by OmegaZero, and one of the things that these Arcane Giants say and indicate is, you know, I'm not going to Yogg next turn because I don't want to Yogg my own Arcane Giants away. So if you're able to just put a huge board wide, then even if Pavel can Yogg, he has to discard his Arcane Giants in the crossfire of the Yogg.
Wow. Did draw into the 2nd swipe. Not needed because Pavel already had the 1st in hand. A huge swipe there, clearing up a good chunk of the board. Violet Teacher and a couple of the trees still alive due to the extra health, but one piece we died inside when that Azure Drake was played. No Netherspite this turn, Fiber.
Potentially one a little bit later on. Pavel currently outside of the range of OmegaZero's damage. OmegaZero sitting at, you know, Swipe plus Druid of the Claw being 8 damage out of hand, 18 damage for OmegaZero. If he picks up a Living Roots, it would be lethal if Pavel doesn't trade. Pavel makes the trade, identifies that there's a lot of risk associated with leaving the Teacher up and with ignoring that board.
Double Swipe Arcane Giant is an option here.
Not a bad one. He can even draw
Oh,
a
he can
card
actually
with the
Wild Growth. Yeah, he can Wild Growth as well. This Arcane Giant, man. Hits me every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a pretty big turn, and having the follow-up of Druid of the Claw or Ragnaros, depending on what the board state looks like OmegaZero is going to be in a strong position coming out of this one.
Yeah, or even Yogg if he feels like he needs it. Kill all of your opponent's minions, play an 8/8. Looks like.
Arcane Giant, you mean?
Yeah, he actually had the option there even to maybe only use one swipe on the Ezreal to trade in a 3/1 and play a Druid of the Claw alongside.
I think I like the full clear.
Okay.
Just means that your opponent's always going to be a step behind because there's no real easy way to kill this giant and play a threatening minion as well.
Yeah, no mulch in Pavel's deck. Already seen the Raven Idol card. So very unlikely that this giant can really get answered unless Pavel wants to kind of just Yogg flip it.
Can just trade, OmegaZero can just trade straight into this Arakoa, get rid of it, leave his giant still pretty healthy on board, and follow up with just Ragnaros and knee to the face. This could be the beginning of the end of Pavel's run through the World Championships here, as this is going to be a hell of a lot of damage.
A lot of damage, but Pavel has a lot of healing in hand, and he has the ability to clear this, potentially, with the Yogg Surround. So this might actually be the overextension that allows Pavel to kind of come back in the value game here. As
he's going to do it. He's decided this is all he's got. He's going to play the Moonfire, play the Yogg, and here we go. Is it going to be enough?
That'll help.
Well, there's
you
a
win
few
the
more
value
Yoggs.
game. Yeah. He just needs to survive the next few turns, and then he's very likely to be able to come back in this game.
Ancestral Knowledge. Oh, well, backup Yogg's.
Innervate for the backup Yogg to get rid of the overdose.
Splash is important. Oh, Holy Nova is what's needed. That is Holy. It's not a Nova. Removes the armor. Heals him back up.
Inconvenient time to remove the armor.
Oh, there we go. Doesn't matter what happens now at all for Pavel, unless he kills himself, because he cleared the board. Yogg is left alive. There's a second Yogg, and more importantly, there are 2 Fel Rages for him to stabilize in terms of health.
And OmegaZero is running out of threats. He's just
what's the? Yogg's only weak to one thing. Fiber.
Another Yogg. Nah,
You got it.
OmegaZero fishing here for potentially lethal, thinking about it at least. He's so close, yet so
What can he
far.
draw, though? With one draw? I don't think there's anything, right? So use both swipes for a start.
Raven Idol stuff occasionally, but he's just going to go for the Yogg. He realizes nothing off the top allows him to close out this game.
Pavel had a great one. Can OmegaZero have an even better one? Off to a reasonable start so far. Oh, that is huge. Oh,
And that's going to be the end of it, but
the 5 damage, very important. Putting his
Not
opponent
enough.
within lethal range next turn, though, as far as he can see with his Druid of the Claw hero power.
he has to expect that there's Pharaoh Rages in the hand of Pavel, and he knows he can't win the Ryu game because Pavel has ganged up Yoggs and has 3 additional Yogg Surrounds in his deck.
This looks very strange. Innovate out through the Overload. Does that
just-
even work?
He's just trying to
It
innovate to test with a counter spell here. Most likely going to be a swipe Pharaoh Rage turn.
Is going to give him another 3-drop minion, though, as that secret was effigy.
This isn't blade.
It's 15 damage for Pavel. 1
Both players so close.
damage, 1 damage off lethal. Yeah, I think he can win a very consistent amount of the time by just Pharaoh Raging for armor again, and sending the Yogg to the face, or even developing the minion. There's no way that OmegaZero is going to be able to kill him from this position, as OmegaZero wasn't able to kill him last turn from a very similar position. So
Yeah, even has Nourish if he's, still feels like he has enough cards to cycle into to really power out. Had still got at least 1 more Yogg in the deck. 9 cards left for OmegaZero. So both players edging towards the bottom of the decks. 10 left for Pavel, being only 1 card behind. So Drake is potentially going to help out OmegaZero, though, try and get some form of answer. He can Azure Drake and Wrath to kill off Yogg. I feel pretty okay with that so far. And this 2-2 is actually pretty decent. Addled Grizzly. When you summon a minion, 1-1.
And it even works on the living roots. He can create 2 2/2s for 1 mana. Pretty sweet combo.
Truly the heart of a token druid deck. This was planned all along, Fiverr.
The 2/2s do not die to the 1/3 conveniently. Pavel has utilized both twice. This board looking pretty difficult to remove. Pavel might need to rely on another Yogg-Saron.
It's a dangerous game, Firebat. You've relied on one, it's done great work. You're a man of numbers. What are the odds on the other one not doing the good work you needed to do?
It's tough. It's definitely a risk. It's a risk you
okay.
need to take, though.
Which Yogg do you play then?
This Yogg is created by Gang Up, so it's like...
play Feral Rage, that's for sure, as it is lit up in green.
So he's got no preparation. But this is like...
How much damage is this?
That's lethal. He's still alive, unless he heals OmegaZero.
There's the prep. There's the Savage Roar. Play the Feral Rage, Pavel. Well, Yogg did some crazy things, but most importantly, cleared the board, survived, and generated so much additional damage here with the Feral Rage, the upgrade, and that is enough for Pavel to win this game and continue his comeback versus OmegaZero. What a Druid Mirror.
Yeah, usually Druid Mirror is not too interesting. Usually someone gets off to a head start, but those Yoggs, that action, that had to be a very nerve-wracking series for both players.
Yeah, what did you see there? Pavel just lean back in his chair and be like, okay, that's 1 more, 2 more to go. But we are going to find out if Pavel can take it or if OmegaZero is going to close it out with his Druid. So don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be back soon.
The Hearthstone World Championship.
We are back with OmegaZero versus Pavel, the last series of the day, the last series of Open Week, and the last spot at BlizzCon up for grabs. OmegaZero is 3-2 up ahead of Pavel, but he was 3-0 at one point, and now it looks like it's starting to slip away.
Yeah, Pavel beginning the comeback train, has 2 decks left that are traditionally pretty good against Druid. So OmegaZero maybe getting a bit nervous. It's potentially looking like a reverse sweep.
Yeah, one of the biggest fears of any competitor, I'm sure you'll agree, is being so far ahead and thinking, surely not.
Yeah.
Surely not. I cannot lose 4 times with one deck, especially when that deck is Druid, but not been going too well. Bit of a crazy one last time in the Druid Mirror, but that's not going to be the case going forward. Is this going to be Pavel's Mage, the deck he has struggled with so far against OmegaZero's Druid, of course. And wow, indeed, hell of an opening for OmegaZero here.
Yeah, that's what you want to see. You want your Violet Teacher, you want your spot removal, and you want your mana acceleration. So honestly, he could potentially just pass away one of those wild growths, but everything else is pretty spot on what you want. Yeah.
All keepers. Pavel, though, not got a bad opening himself, especially with that babbling book coming down. Spellbender. I swear we've seen the most Spellbenders ever this week. Feels like every random secret that pops up is a Spellbender.
It's an annoying one, too. It's the trap that no one really thinks it is. It's just like Vaporize. No one really believes it's a real card.
I've vaporized an uprooted Ancient of War before in a tournament game. It was the best. Good times.
All right, Wild Growth from OmegaZero, undoubtedly coming out on this turn too. Allows him to potentially go Violet Teacher, coin Living Roots the following turn, clean up the Sorcerer's Apprentice. He has to leave it be for the time being, but it's such a convenient way to remove it in the future. Get so many tokens.
All in.
All in.
Do everything. Second Apprentice. Cast it all. Go face. Start stacking up that Mana Worm damage.
This is
end the game. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Pavel disagrees.
Much better line of play here from Pavel. Able to
Pay attention, class.
get out that secret to kind of help play around this Living Roots play here. It's not actually going to remove power from his board, but it's actually going to add power to Pavel's board.
I'm ready to learn.
And even to help clear up the tokens here is, the 1-1 not going to do too much else. It's already been a champ, absorbed the 2 damage, guarded the Sorcerer's Apprentice, and with the addition of Apprentice into Frostbolt, Arcane Missile, Ping, he can do whatever the hell he wants this turn, and finally with this mage, Pavel seems like he's getting somewhere.
Yeah, this is the opening he's been searching for.
Dreaming of.
Yeah, the previous 3 games he's just been closing his eyes, envisioning this opening, and this is why, because this opening is killer.
So much pressure, and OmegaZero had the early start, like you said, had a pretty decent opening hand, but the rest of his hand, all late game. Does he draw, or does he try and ramp into something?
You go ramp, and then you play the Wild Growth, and then you hit the Innervate, and you play the Yogg.
Okay. Battle plans. Oh, well, there's the Innervate, but not combined with the ramp, of course, as you cannot draw and ramp unless Fandral's on the board. Very scary moment indeed, but Pavel might just have done too much already. It's going to be very difficult. See, Pavel only holding on to a Flame Strike at the moment. Not going to be a great card to actually end the game, but 1 burn card could change everything. There is what? 10, 11 damage, 12 with a ping. Extremely close, and Pavel can just play this Sorcerer. If not, he's not in range of a Azure Drake into swipe unless there is what, like 2 Innovates? Exactly Azure Drake, Innovate, swipe available.
Yeah, OmegaZero does have a Blood Mage Thalnos in his deck, hoping to try and couple that with a swipe, but unable to do so, and that's going to leave him in the dust. It looks like Pavel's going to be evening up the series.
Yeah, this open is just too much, and Babbling Book MVP for me. That Spellbender was too much, and guys, you may have blinked and you may have missed it, but Pavel has evened this series up. We are going to Game 7, the decider for the decider.
Yeah, honestly, really impressive play by Pavel. Able to just really punish this Druid by OmegaZero and bring the series back.
Yeah, and everyone, don't go anywhere. Maybe grab a very quick drink. You saw how fast that series was. That game, sorry. We might be onto a quick one for the last one as well. We'll be back very soon with the conclusion of the last series of the day, Pavel versus OmegaZero. Welcome back. OmegaZero versus Pavel. Last game of opening week. The winner of this single game will book his spot at BlizzCon next week. The final spot. We already know the other 7. These are the last 2 guys. Who do you think is going to take it, Firebat? Rogue from Pavel versus the Druid.
I think that Pavel has the momentum. He's got the wind in his sails, so to speak. And he's got actually a slightly favored matchup, I'd say, in the form of Malygos Rogue versus Druid. So everything's adding up. I'm excited to see the potential of this reverse sweep, and I think he's got it in him.
We're about to find out. Oh, wow. No messing around.
Yeah, already played a card.
Raven Idol, go. Yeah, okay. So it looks like he has played the Raven Idol. There we are. We are going to catch up. But Pavel does have a pretty good opening himself. Swashbuckler. He has SI7 Agent combined with Backstab later on and a Tomb Pillager on 4. Everything he wants to pressure OmegaZero out of this final game. Even Barnes is another option.
Wrath's not a bad card in the Rogue arsenal. Double Innervate, though. OmegaZero could have some very powerful turns up ahead, and there's no sap from the side of Pavel.
Yeah, we'll see if OmegaZero is going to be the aggressor here due to those Innovates. Whether Pavel is going to be able to start to pile on the pressure, the coin, the backstab, now the Abyss, now the Wrath. Pavel's got all of the tempo opportunities going forward here, but can he keep it?
We're going to see him explode ahead in tempo here with the Backstab SI, able to chop down the Azure Drake. Follow that up with a Tomb Pillager into Gadgets and Auctioneer with 2 coins.
Do you want, is there a better hand here, Firebat, for Pavel? I know you love Rogue, you've been playing a lot of Rogue. What else does he want here? Because other than maybe a sap, it looks pretty good to me.
If he had Azure Drake and then another Backstab, it could get even better. Because, you know, right now the turn 5 is kind of awkward. He has to settle for, you know, like Barnes.
What a shame.
Yeah.
Tomb Pillager, Barnes, Gadgets and Coin.
Yeah.
It's a hard life.
It
it's
could
a hard
be better.
life.
You asked me how it could be better, and I'm just... There's always slight improvements to the hand.
It's still looking pretty good, though.
And OmegaZero just playing some catch-up on the board, setting up to maybe be able to innervate out something bigger, innervate out Fandral combos later. Doesn't want to rush out a Fandral now.
Yeah, very straightforward turn for Pavel, I imagine. No really deliberation. What do you think about... Okay, here's a question. When do you attack with the dagger in Rogue?
Well, in Pavel's case, since there are no deadly poisons, he can attack very freely with it whenever he feels, you know, most comfortable, honestly. There's no Harrison Jones from the side of OmegaZero. He's not redaggering anytime soon because of the amount of minions he has in his hands. So, just holding it around just in case when you need it, so you never really need to invest 2 mana into it again, seems quite reasonable to me.
Cool. It was a question. I think the rogue daggering is something a lot of people don't understand, to be honest. Something that isn't completely obvious at first glance, but what is obvious is that Pavel is going to continue on with this minion pressure. And hey, there's a Gadget Zan. Why not?
Yeah, you can utilize it this turn if he wants to, or he can be a little bit more patient with it.
This, oh no, is he going to go for Swashbuckler into Sinister Strike? Yeah, okay. I thought it was coin at this face.
Yeah.
Go. Like, really trying to assert dominance. He is starting to stack together quite a lot of damage here, to be fair. This Tomb Pillager is going to live to be able to attack. This is putting on a lot of pressure. Scenarios can even go the long game.
Yeah, he can go every direction with this game. Probably won't need to go the long game just because he's got so much damage in the build. He still has another Sinister Strike that he can couple with that Malagos, along with, you know, 1 of 2 Shivs or some Eviscerates, and really produce a lot of damage.
Swipe is going to do a lot of work for Omega Hero. He should change his name to Omega Hero, because I'm just going to keep calling it OmegaZero. Here, clearing off the big threats, just leaving Barnes as a 3-3, not the end of the world. Going to chip some damage. Now just, yeah, another threat from Pavel. Getting the Emperor down on with this kind of hand. 1 mana of this, 1 mana Wrath. Still has the coin and plenty of stuff to mess around with going forward. This is looking like a stomp here, and OmegaZero has got to scramble to try and, you know, equalize this board and really just come out on top here. This is going to be very, very tough.
Yeah, I can't really picture too many lines of plays that can get this job done. He does have Fandral that can couple with the Wrath, which is a very powerful effect. And then he can innervate out the swipe after that, get a full board clear, draw a card, develop Fandral. Other than that, there's not too much action I can see here.
I think he just has to, right? You know, you need to put at least something on the board. You can't continue to give Rogue almost 3 turns to go threat after threat, because as the Druid, you will not be able to keep up.
Yeah, what Druid really needs to do in this matchup and how they can find success is if they're able to kill everything from the Rogue's position and then start stabilizing Arcane Giants. Pavel does not have removal in his deck for Arcane Giants, so his only option is to sap the 8-8 back to OmegaZero's hand. Well, it's a 0 mana 8-8 at later stages of the game, so if he's able to do that, he can find himself in a very strong position.
Yeah, did choose to cycle, and now he's just going to develop the Faunos along with that Innovate to be able to clear the board. Is it going to be enough? When there's such a strong turn coming out from Pavel, it's more than likely going to be Gadget Zan. And then sheer craziness, he'll be able to draw his deck. Backstab is only going to help this scenario.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty good. He's got a prep remaining in the deck. He has a lot of
preps, right?
At 2 preps remaining in the deck, so he doesn't really need to save too much for Malagos. Like, he doesn't need to save the coin for Malagos, even though the Emperor proc has been used, because he is still able to generate enough damage with the Malagos and the preparations later on.
Yeah, and he did end up going for the Scenarios turn, making his Gadget Zan turn even potentially more powerful next time, and also just presenting another huge threat and potential lethal to OmegaZero that he has to answer. And the answer he's chosen is going to be Yogg, and the Assassinate going onto Scenarios himself is quite a big deal, removing the most damage off the board. Feral Spirit definitely going to help. Uh-oh, pull him off on Yogg. Nope.
Not again.
Not again.
A lot of minion generation here for him. Gets a couple buffs down.
That is a mean-looking cheap.
Thistle T could be huge. That's 3 Ragnaroses.
3 Ragnaros.
You know what
Thistle
card
T
is good against Rogue?
Ragnaros.
Ragnaros.
I was going to say a 4-1 Divine Shielded sheep.
That's true as well, I guess.
But sure, Ragnaros. Is there going to be enough time? There's a spell-powered fan of knives available though, so the board can be cleared relatively easily, and Pavel can still push for damage.
Is that lethal actually in the midst of this? Not quite. With a preparation, could be lethal this turn, but it doesn't have it.
Yeah, he's 2 off, right, I think?
Yeah, 2 off. So he has to just settle for clearing the board and being 2 off lethal.
Just settle for just clearing the board and being 2 off lethal, yeah.
Yeah,
those hard times.
Looks like there's going to be enough time for these Ragnaroses to really get deployed.
Second of this. Is that... Nope, doesn't change anything.
What's
no prep.
Really costing OmegaZero in this matchup is there's no Pharaoh Rages in this Druid deck. He has no healing. So he has no way to recover his health aside from Raven Idol cards. He's just at the mercy of Pavel's damage, and Pavel is sitting there with loads of damage remaining in his deck.
Yeah, it's not as if he needs to, you know, if the board is cleared, he's in trouble here. He has Sinister Strike, Abyss, comboed with SI7 Agent. There's just not a lot OmegaZero can do.
There's nothing OmegaZero can do at this point.
An absolutely fantastic start from Pavel. OmegaZero just not got enough. And not, as you said, not enough defense. The Pharaoh Rages are really missing out here. Potentially going up to additional 16 health could allow him to stabilize and stay in this game. Does a great job of clearing the board and putting some threats on himself, but we can see that is not going to be enough, and a reverse sweep for Pavel. He's going to be the 8th player joining the rest of them at BlizzCon next week to play for that World Championship title. What a series.
Yeah, that was really something else. It was really well fought by both players. OmegaZero's strategy working out extremely well in the beginning, kind of punishing Pavel for having a little bit of greedier decks, but Pavel able to fight through against it and secure his spot at BlizzCon.
Yeah, and Group D there, we can see Hot Meowth and Pavel first and second place in the group. They are going to be going on, but enough from us. We are here with Pavel now alongside Froda and Fireside.
Pavel, that was a crazy series. You were down 0-3. What was going through your mind as you were making the comeback?
Yeah, just super glad now that I will go to BlizzCon as a player.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't imagine that right now there's a lot of emotions going through. I think people were really scared for Europe as well, because coming in today, no one had qualified for the main stage. So do you think you and Dr. Hippie together can represent EU well for BlizzCon Top 8?
Yeah, I think we both very good players, and I think we definitely can represent well. Maybe even someone of us will win.
All right, well, they are defending region for championships of the world, so congratulations on your reverse sweep. Hopefully we'll be able to catch up with you later. But for now, we are done with all of our matches in the top 12 and determine the top 8. So let's go ahead and wrap up the day with analysis and some